Hey guys, hi. I did say 8 o'clock ish, so it's 8 o'clock ish. I apologize. It's actually more like 9 ish. My bad. I was so busy running around today. Um, so thank you for joining me. Remember, we talked on, was it Wednesday? Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. Wednesday. So anyway, we were going to discuss the Coconut Grove fire from 1947. And that was in Massachusetts and Boston. So, for those of you that aren't familiar, I do host a show called Crafting and Crime with Charlie because, as I mentioned before, whenever I was crafting, I caught myself watching true crime dramas, which I thought were, it's educational, I guess. I wasn't too much into the gory ones. I liked more of the ones that were like real cases and they had the real detectives and, how they did the investigation with the real family and all of that. So I realized that I wasn't the only one. Like I mentioned before, I thought it was, I really thought I was the only weirdo that did that. But apparently I'm not. So that's where the idea came from, where I would, that I wind up finding myself that I was always watching these shows. When excuse me for 1 second, I'm trying to get this so I can see what people are saying. Because last time they're like, oh, you didn't answer my comment. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm new at this, but it's all good. Anyway, so one of the things that I wanted to mention to you guys was the fact that I always like to discuss obscure cases. So the first case that we discussed on the show, Crafting and Crime with Charlie, was the Coconut Grove fire. And if you go to YouTube on our channel, you can see it there. It's more in depth and it's got a lot of the facts, and I even put a lot of pictures and stuff in there as well. So basically, I just wanted to get your opinion on what you guys thought about it, and I'll give you some of the facts. So back in time, November 28th, 1942. I had put 1947, but it's not. It was 1942. So if you're familiar with Boston and Massachusetts, we have a lot of really famous colleges and teams. So Boston College had a football game against Holy Cross that day. It was on a Saturday. The reality is that Holy Cross wasn't that good, and Boston College was expected to completely blow them out. Now, at that time, there were these scouts from a couple of tournaments that are really big deal from the conferences. So basically, they were coming to watch the game, and Boston College was expected to win. I mean, that's just the way it was supposed to go. And they were going to get invited to these conferences. Well, there was no joy in Mudville that day because Boston College lost. Yes, they lost. So let's see. They had the game. I have my notes up here. So they had the game. Yep, they lost 55-12, which was like, are you serious right now? And so they were the college both game scouts were the ones that were there in this big upset. Now, the thing is, when they had played before, the year before, BC won by a lot. So anyway, because BC thought they were really, really going to win, they had planned this big party at the Coconut Grove Club. Now, back in the day in Boston, nightclubs as we know them were not allowed. They were considered like supper clubs with bands and stuff like that, but technically they were not considered nightclubs because those were not allowed. I know, splitting hairs. So anyway, this guy wind up buying originally from 1927, this gangster wind up buying it, and he owned it, and then it wind up, he got arrested, and this guy who was his lawyer or a friend of his lawyer, whatever, wind up buying it. I'm trying to remember his name here because, yes, Barney Walensky, he's the one that wind up buying it. So, oh my gosh, you gotta love things back in the day. So Barney decided that, he wanted to decorate it. He wanted to look high end, but obviously he didn't want to spend the high end money on it. No, nay, he did not. So what wound up happening is that he cut a lot of corners. Basically, he had, non-union labor, which basically meant they weren't certified. They weren't educated in that way. So cut rates material, cut rate labor, basically paying people under the table, that kind of stuff. So We're going to fast forward to now where there's supposed to be this big bash for Boston College. Now, because Boston College lost, the celebration they were going to have got canceled for obvious reasons. But it's still, now you have to remember, we're talking November 1942. There's still, it's at the beginning of the World War II. And Boston being near, because this was on Piedmont Street, which is near Park Square, Park Street. And it's near the docks. So you would have all the ships coming in with the Navy, sailors, and there was a lot of GIs and military personnel that were here on leave. So what wind up happening is there was still a lot of people there. Now, the thing that really gets me is the fact that the occupancy rate, like I told you guys, it was, I think, like 380, 400 tops. But that's not what wind up happening. They had close to 1,000 people in there. Yeah, squeezed in there. Now, when you walked in, there's a revolving door, and then you walk in, and then there was like the main ballroom with all the dinner tables and stuff, and then there was the stand for the band. And there was these drapes, coming down, and there was obviously Coconut Grove. They had these coconut trees, hanging from the side. So it was like, this big thing would come out like the trunk of the coconut tree, and they had all these coconut trees and decorations and stuff. Well, so, and downstairs, they had like a lounge area. So there was, a bar, and there were tables and, chairs and stuff there too. And you can hear the music, so people would be coming up and down. Now, so what wind up happening, this place is packed. It's about 10:15. And, as a matter of fact, there was a very famous cowboy western star, Buck Jones, back then. And Buck Jones was big. He was like, if you consider Roy Rogers or Gene Autry, that kind of guy, or he was really famous. So he had actually spent during the day at Children's Hospital because the kids loved him. He was very well known. So he wound up spending the day there, visiting the kids, making them feel well, just hanging out with them. So when he went back to his hotel, he told his manager that he really wasn't feeling well. He just was not feeling well at all. So he wind up, he wanted to stay in the hotel. He basically wanted to just take some medicine, go to sleep. But his manager said, listen, there's these important people coming, and they want to talk to you about a project. I think it'll be very good for you. You should be there. So Buck Jones decided, okay, fine, I'll go because my manager wants me to go. So he figures I'll stay half an hour, 45 minutes, talk, and then I can leave and go back to my hotel room and go to sleep. So anyway, about 10:15, the bartender in the lower level notices that there is a light bulb out, and it's very dark over there. Now, what they don't understand is if the light bulb actually burnt out, or they suspect that someone had unscrewed it because they wanted a little bit more privacy. But it was really dark there. So the bartender, he's busy. So he calls the 16-year-old busboy over, and he says, hey, I need you to change that light bulb. Now, we're talking about a 16-year-old kid, and they were, paid under the table. So whatever, the kid goes, he didn't have a flashlight, so he climbs up the ladder to look the lights out, and then he's going to basically change this light bulb. And as he does, he lights a match or a lighter, one of the two. Anyway, an open flame so he could see what he was doing. Well, when he did that, one of the leaves from the fake coconut trees basically caught fire. And this is the thing that gets me. So they were made out of paper, but they were covered in wax to keep them from getting, I guess, dusty or from having them last longer. It went up like that. So it went up. Now the bartender sees that. He runs over. He's trying to put the fire out. It's not happening. That fire just took off. It was crazy. It was like a fireball. So again, we're talking about the fact that there's more than 1,000 people in this place. Now, if you see pictures online, if you look at the stairs coming up, they're narrow. So you're lucky if you only get one line. Now, the other thing that happened was now all these people are rushing upstairs trying to get out. And meanwhile, the people on the main floor have no idea what's going on. No idea. and the noise and everything, so they're trying to get out. Now the other thing that happened was that when they decorated the place, these massive curtains, that were draped and everywhere, that went up in flames too. But the problem was that they used those curtains to cover the exit doors. Yeah. And they weren't marked. Yeah. So while people were trying to figure out how to get out, because everybody was just running up the stairs, a couple of people kind of figured out where the exits were. But now the problem was some were locked, so they couldn't get out, and some that were opened in. So you have all these people panicking. They're trying to get out, and there's a press of flesh right up against those doors. So they were trapped. They were really trapped, and that is the sad thing about that. So some of the people went upstairs. Now everybody's trying to get out. And remember, I said there was a revolving door. Well, back in the day, they didn't have the two emergency doors on the side. It was just the revolving door. So sadly, a lot of people trying to get out got wedged in there. So it was really a death trap. There was really no way for these people to get out. Some did manage to get out, and also because they were, like I said, soldiers and sailors and stuff, and they saw what was going on. They started trying to break windows and stuff to get people out. Now, get this. Talk about a coincidence. And it was good in a way, because it could have been so much more worse. So the Boston Fire Department gets a call for a car on fire. And back then you pulled a call box, near where the fire was. So this fire truck happens to come, and because it was transmitted from like box 1514. So they go there, and there's the car on fire. They put the fire out. And this is literally like a block or two, maybe, like a block or so away from the Coconut Grove Club. Well, one of the firefighters look up, and he sees the smoke billowing out and stuff. So they quickly respond over there. So they got there in a matter of minutes from when the fire started out. And as a result of that, they were able to do more of the, trying to put the fire out quicker. Now, if they hadn't been there, no cell phones, you had to go find a payphone, people are panicking. It would have been a lot longer before anybody would have been able to call the fire department to get them down there, and there would have definitely been a lot more casualties. So, the fire department's there. Now they're basically forming a human chain with the soldiers and the sailors getting people out. And unfortunately, after they were able to contain the fire, they realized that it really wasn't much of a rescue. It was more of a recovery, which, the difference is rescue is when you're hopeful that you're getting people that are still alive out. Recovery is when, unfortunately, they've passed, and you just try to recover as many of them as you can to get them identified and stuff. So needless to say, this was a scandal, because the headlines the next morning was saying that over 480 wind up dying. Now, the thing that happened too is that a lot of the burn victims were sent over to Mass General Hospital and to Boston Medical. Now, the thing is, the people that went to Mass General, the doctors and nurses, that was the first time that they used penicillin to fight infection in burn victims. So the people that went to Mass General actually had a greater survival rate, unfortunately, than the people that went to Boston Medical, because they didn't have that technique yet. It hadn't been widely used. It was just a new experimental thing that they were doing. Because sadly, a lot of the people that passed away after the fact, it wasn't so much from the per se injuries, but it was the infections that set in. So with Mass General Hospital using penicillin, it really was able to fight that off, and a lot of them were able to survive. Now, let's see. Dr. Oliver Koop was the one that affected the. Okay, this is getting deep now. Boric petroleum. Now, these purple dyes were used to coat the skin and to fight the infection. So with the penicillin, it was a greater scale of them being able to fight the infection. So now, there's this big to-do, the headlines where it says, sealed Grove exit found, and, And you know, the sad thing is, I felt awful reading this because the poor busboy got thrown under the bus. Like, everybody was trying to blame this kid, and it's like, you can't blame him because he did exactly what he was told. He was told, go do this. And yeah, okay, common sense maybe he didn't use, because I mean, but how many of us haven't done that? Pre-cell phones, we use a lighter or we use a flat a match to see what we're doing. The kid didn't know that it was so badly made, and that the material was so shoddy and dangerous. And the other thing too is that behind one of the walls, because the place was air conditioned, there was these massive tubes of the freon that was being used to cool that, and that actually contributed to the fire as well. So there was a big inquiry, and they wind up. So they brought the busboy in for questioning, and they wind up. Questioning him ad nauseum, and the kid, he was honest. He said, "This is what happened." But this poor kid literally had to move out of Boston because that's how incredibly bad it was for him, because people were just blaming him because they wanted someone to blame. But then what wind up happening is the owner wind up going on trial, and who was the other one? I'm trying to remember because I know it was. Hold on, let me look real quick. I know it was okay. So the guy that got the owner, he was the one that was found. Okay, most believe the busboy was responsible, but other believes the cause was electrical. Now, the grand jury would later indict 10 people, but the only person convicted was the actual owner, Barney Walensky, because he's the one that cut all the corners on one count of manslaughter. Really? One count? Really? And he was sentenced to 12 to 15 years in Charlestown State Prison, and because he had a cancer condition, he was pardoned after serving like 3.5 years, and he died in 1947 from the cancer. He was 50 years old, several months after his release from prison. So, as horrible as all this was, like I had mentioned before, the good things that came out of it is that, one, they discovered that penicillin was very effective to fight infection when it came to treating burn victims. Because, that was one of the things that people weren't taking into account, the fact that it was the infection killing these people. Excuse me one sec. Someone's trying to email me while I'm trying to do this. It's like, okay. Whatever, I'm trying to multitask, not that good at it, but it's all good. It's all good, guys. We got it. So the building codes. So now all these different building codes came in. So I had mentioned before, the revolving doors were outlawed. For years, public buildings were not allowed to have revolving doors because of the fact that they felt it was very dangerous, to have them in these places. Now, years later, they're like, all right, you're required to have double doors so people can get out in case there's an emergency. The second thing that came out of it was that all establishments, the doors have to open out, because that way, even if there's a press of people, they're actually pushing you out as opposed to, in. Thirdly, all the doors, emergency doors, have to be unlocked, or they have to be, a push. Like if you notice nowadays, they have the push bar. So even though they can't be opened from the outside, the push bar releases and you can get right out. And there could be 100 people behind you, you're still going to get pushed out. Let's see. And the other thing that wind up coming out of it when it came out to the codes was the fact of the use of flammable materials in the decorations. Because, I mean, come on now. You had wax-covered paper because it supposedly made it last longer. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me that they did that. And I get it. The guy was trying to cut corners, but to me it was like, dude, really, what were you thinking? Now, a lot of people look at this case and use it as an example. Now, mind you, sadly, a few years after that, there was a huge fire in Chicago, I believe, where that happened. Now, the other thing, they said the final count established by Commissioner Riley was 490 dead and 166 injured. The number of injuries was a count of those treated at the hospital and later released, and many other patrons were injured, but they didn't even go to the hospital. As the years went by, they recognized much of the fatalities became 492. The count of the dead in a single fire event exceeded only by the Chicago Iroquois Theater Fire of December 30, 1903. That was 603 people. That was really sad. And sadly, it was mostly kids, which was heartbreaking. And then sadly, 9/11 happened. And the fire alone, they said, killed, let me see, 2,750 people, which a combination of the fire and the building collapsed. And the other thing, too, that came out is that exit doors have to be clearly marked. And they have to be marked in such a way that there's either a light saying exit that you can see, or it glows in the dark. Like our business, we have the signs that they glow in the dark, which is really cool because they really stick out so you can really see them. So the crazy thing to me was the fact that it took something so horrible for people to realize, hey, we need to up these codes. And the thing is, of course, people are like, well, they paid people off, maybe the inspector, but at that point, yeah, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but at the end of the day, the codes weren't in place. And, the biggest thing was that emergency doors cannot be blocked. They can't have screens. They can't be locked. Any of that. Oh, and the other thing that was in placement was the emergency lights and the sprinkler systems, which, right away would have put the fire out more or less in there. So, yeah, that was the 1942 Cocoanut Grove fire. Now, think about this. The fact that such a horrific event just came out of a sequence of events. Because at the end of the day, they still say, someone unscrewed that light bulb. Whether it was trying to be funny or because they wanted privacy, whatever it was. And that's really what started the sequence of events. I mean, obviously, if the owner hadn't been shady and if he wasn't letting all these extra, come on, your occupancy rate, number is like 380 and you have like 1,000 people in there. And mind you, they speculate that if Boston College had won, there would have probably been closer to 3,000, maybe even more people in there. That's scary to think about. Now, if you go near where Piedmont Street, where it is, there's actually a plaque there that commemorates the date of the fire and the site where it originally happened, because the building was knocked down. And I think there's a hotel there now. Yeah, and the other thing, too, is the fire retardant material. That came out of it, too. So, yeah, Cocoanut Grove fire. Listen, if you guys want to get more information, there is an awesome website called bostonfirehistory.org. I think it's run by the Boston Fire Museum. And they have a lot of great facts about it. They have pictures that you can see. There's a lot of copies of newspaper articles. I was able to get a lot of information on it. And it was really fascinating for me to read it. And the fact that, like that guy, Buck Jones, it really hit me, because of the fact this guy was doing a good thing. He was just here on his own time, trying to, help kids out, kind of like, actors do nowadays. Like, Johnny Depp goes dressed as Jack Sparrow and Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy. All these actors, they do that to help the kids out. And he was just doing his job. Okay, I'm going to go. And sadly, he passed away. And he's one of those people that kind of got forgotten, by history. And the fact that there's so many people that, we don't remember about anymore because it was so long ago. All right, with that said, guys, listen. Like I said, go to my YouTube, ordinarywoman.com, Charlie Alejandro. Just Charlie Alejandro official everything. You'll see me. TikTok, Insta, Twitter, formerly X, formerly Twitter, YouTube. And we only have 2 up right now, which is the Cocoanut Grove fire and the child slayer, the child killer of Boston. And he was a child. That was disturbing. We'll talk about that later. So what I do is I'm going to film the episode where I give you specifics, details, pictures, the whole bit while I'm doing a craft. Yes. I actually do that. And in that project, I think we were, I'm trying to remember. I think I wind up fixing a microphone that had gotten blinged out and they were falling out. Yeah. And then in the second one, I actually made, I blinged out some wine glasses that I thought looked really cute and, you know, very easy to make. So you can check those out as well. And now I'm actually working on, you know, that cricket is amazing, you guys. Like, look at this shirt. Like, I just love it. See, it says, bloodstains are red, ultraviolet lights are blue. I've seen enough murder shows that they will never find you. And then I added the handprints because I thought that was kind of cool. And the thing that I love about this vinyl, it's the puffy vinyl. So there's actually a 3-dimension feel to it. It's so cool. So I haven't worked with this particular vinyl as much, so it'll be interesting for me to see how well it holds up. And that's what I do. I'll usually, if I make something new, I'll wear it. I'll try it out. I also have a couple of friends that'll be like, hey, try these out. Put them in the dishwasher. Put them in the washing machine. Let me know how it works so I can try the different vinyls and the different style shirts. Like these are just cotton hoodies, which is funny because they actually come like this. I thought it was like the coolest thing that it's already cut. Because I know some people don't like the regular hoodies because they feel like they get choked out. So guys, tell me what kind of, honestly, what kind of shows are you guys interested in watching? Because we can talk about any cases, and I would like to discuss it, get your guys' opinion on it. What do you think about the verdicts? What do you think about the events that led up to that? And just get more information on it. Yeah, that's right. All right, Charlie Alejandro, Crafting and Crime with Charlie. There'll be actually 2 new episodes coming up in the next 2 weeks. We'll be talking about the axe murderer of New Orleans. And we'll actually be talking about the serial killings in Boston of young white males, which apparently doesn't exist because they don't think it's a serial killer. It's just us putting pieces together. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but it's just too much of a coincidence. And I do not believe in coincidences. No. All right, look me up. Gave you all my information. It was very nice hanging out with you guys on a Friday. It's freezing where I am. And if you're in New England, get ready for the snow. We've been lucky. We haven't had been out today. It's, oh my gosh. This morning, I'm like, I cannot feel my face. It's like, oh. I actually felt like I had Botox this morning. I was like, I can't feel my face. I can't move it. Yeah. It was bad. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Hit me up with questions. I know some of you, a lot of you actually DM'd me after the Wednesday one. And I'm not going to lie, yesterday was crazy, so I hadn't had a chance to check them. But I will definitely address your questions and comments the next time I go live, which is probably going to be Sunday because we're going to be snowed in allegedly. So we might as well hang out, right? All right, guys. Have a good Friday. Stay warm, and I'll talk to you later. I like how I'm trying to be like really cool. It's not going out. All right. Oh my goodness.